I go through my news feed and just sort of cover all the news that's come out for the day, and I thought I would do it on stream this time so everybody can keep up to date. I posted all of my Twitter, so you can always follow there, or you can check out my Geekly Weekly at the end of the month, which has all the most important stories attached, including, first off, the first story tonight, Yellowstone Park reopening after changes wrought by flood. Apparently there was a flood in Yellowstone Park that has reshaped the park's rivers and canyons, wiped out numerous roads, and left some areas famous for their wildlife viewing inaccessible, possibly for months to come. So Yellowstone Park has permanently been altered based on different climate events that have been going on in that area, which is fascinating, if you ask me. Moving on, Afghanistan earthquake kills at least 155 people. I was going to post that to my I have a little notepad here that I post all the headlines I think are worthy of showing up in the Geekly Weekly at the end of the week. And that'll be another one. Alright. Done. Happened off screen, but done. A severe earthquake shook 4 districts of Paktika province, killing and injuring hundreds of our countrymen and destroying dozens of homes, Bilal Karimi, a deputy spokesman of the Taliban government, wrote on Twitter. I had a friend named Bilal once. He was not remotely Taliban. We urge all aid agencies to send teams to the area immediately to prevent further catastrophe. The earthquake was at a magnitude 6.1. Tremors were felt in the Pakistani capital, Islamabad, and elsewhere in the eastern Punjab province. That sounds crazy. Earthquakes are scary. Let's see here. Australian state outlaws public displays of Nazi swastikas. That's good for them. Man gets 18-month term for sex assault of Alibaba employee. That's horrible. Europe wildfire risk heightened by early heat waves and drought. No winning ticket, nobody cares. Most of this, this is city news, but pretty much they're just an Associated Press affiliate. So they just most of these articles are just from the Associated Press, and then some of them are from the Canadian Associated Press. That's why I use this one instead of just a normal Associated Press news sources, because this one I can get Canadian and American Associated Press news. Zelensky to virtually address Canadian university students on how to support Ukraine. I heard that already happened. What's going on here? The annual inflation rate hit 6.8% in April, its highest level since January 1991, when it reached 6.9%. So it's been this high before, in a time that didn't even have a pandemic. However, economists at the Bank of Montreal are predicting the May figure will top 7% amid a surge in energy prices. Makes sense. The big bank's forecast calls for a year-over-year gain in the consumer price index of 7.4% in May. It says if the forecast is correct, it would make it the fastest pace since February 1983. Also, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau is on his way to Rwanda for the first leg of a 10-day trip to confer with other world leaders as the war in Ukraine is expected to loom large over nearly all his discussions. Trudeau is expected to arrive in Kigali, the capital, on Wednesday evening, where he will gather with the heads of government from the other 53 countries in the Commonwealth for the first time since 2018. And they're all going to get COVID. He will then depart. There was something I saw on Twitter that, here, new data. Reinfection was found to substantially increase the risk of death, hospitalization, and adverse health outcomes, making strategies preventing reinfection critical. So people who talk about, oh, once everybody gets COVID, it'll be fine, we'll be resistant to COVID, and it'll all be over. That's all a lie. Because you can get COVID again, and it gets worse each time you do it. So that's something to remember. Blah 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 blah. Blah blah blah. In her first week on the job at a Philadelphia abortion clinic, Amanda Kifferly was taught how to search for bombs. What? That seems unnecessary. About a year later, protesters blocked the entrances and exits of the women's centers, at one point pulling Kifferly into something resembling a mosh pit where they surrounded her and shoved her around. And on the night of last winter's arguments for the U.S. Supreme Court in a case that could end the nationwide right to abortion, people gathered outside a clinic in New Jersey with lawn chairs, a cooler, and a flaming torch, a sight that brought to mind lynchings and other horrors of the country's racist past, says Kifferly, who now serves as vice president for abortion access. Such scenes have become familiar for providers and patients across country over the decades since the landmark 1973 Roe v. Wade ruling legalizing abortion. At times, the violence has been far more severe, including bombings, arson, and murders. From the 1993 killing of Dr. David Gunn outside a Florida abortion clinic to the 2015 fatal shooting of 3 people inside a Colorado Planned Parenthood. Now providers and some in law enforcement worry what will come next. They're preparing for an increase in violence once the Supreme Court rules, saying there has historically been a spike when the issue of abortion gets widespread public attention, such as after a state approved new restrictions. If the decision ends Roe v. Wade, as a leaked draft opinion indicates may happen, they also anticipate protests, harassment, and other violence to be more concentrated and intensify in states where abortion remains legal. We know from experience it's not like the people protesting clinics in banned states just pack up and go home, said Melissa Fowler, Chief Program Officer for the National Abortion Federation. So, that sounds fucked. Yep, we know about the earthquake. On this day in 1976, the House of Commons approved by just 8 votes a bill abolishing the death penalty. That's in Canada. Prime Minister Pierre Trudeau, the father of our current Prime Minister, called the decision a further step away from violence and barbarism. The last execution in Canada was in 1962. Blah, 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 blah. Yes, yes, yes. Alright, moving on. Sri Lanka PM says economy has collapsed and they are unable to buy oil. What does that even mean? Sri Lanka's Prime Minister says its debt-laden economy has collapsed after months of shortages of food, fuel, and electricity. Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe told Parliament on Wednesday that the South Asian country is facing a far more serious situation beyond the mere shortage of fuel, gas, electricity, and food. Our economy has completely collapsed. Wickremesinghe is the finance minister tasked with stabilizing the economy. He said Sri Lanka is unable to purchase imported fuel even for cash due to heavy debts owed by its petroleum corporation. He said the government missed out on the chance to turn the situation around and that we are now seeing signs of a possible fall to rock bottom. That sounds like a nightmare for what is probably millions of people. And this kind of shit goes on, and people just don't even think about it. We live in our first world countries, and we don't even realize that there's major crises going on around the world, and it's insane. You know what? I'm gonna add that to the Geekly Weekly. Even though it is kind of, well, whatever. Done. And it's on Twitter. Alright, moving on. Blowing my nose and moving on. Alright. Let's see here. 1,000 dead. Wasn't it like 155 last time we checked? Jesus Christ. Could have sworn that we had just covered this story and it was like 155 dead and now it's up to like 1,000 people. A powerful earthquake struck a rural mountainous region of eastern Afghanistan early Wednesday, killing 1,000 people and injuring 1,500 more. Officials warned that the already grim toll would likely rise. Well, clearly. Like, damn. Already risen a lot. Wow. In this photo released by a set-run news agency Bakhtar, Afghans look at destruction caused by an earthquake in the province of Patika, eastern Afghanistan, Wednesday, June 22nd. Huh. I thought I just saw this story, and it said hundreds dead. Seems it escalated fast. And that could potentially get worse, so that's fun. I'll worry about that later. Back to what I'm doing up on this screen. Alright. It leaves 5 stars in chaos as the De Mayo splits. Nope, don't care. Pope blasts violence in Mexico as he mourns 2 slain Jesuits. Yeah, he's been talking all kinds of shit lately. Doesn't really do anything. Blah blah blah. Denmark to offer 4th COVID-19 shot to come. I've had 3 shots. Drone strike hits Russian refinery near Ukraine. A drone strike caused a fire at a refinery in southwestern Russia near the border with Ukraine on Wednesday, but no one was hurt and the blaze was contained quickly. The fire engulfed industrial equipment. Was it a strike like a Ukrainian strike, or it's described as a terrorist attack or a terrorist act? Ukrainian officials haven't claimed responsibility for the drone strike. A video posted on a messaging app channel showed a drone flying by and hitting what was purported to be the refinery. A giant plume of smoke rising into the sky. The authenticity of the video could not be independently verified. The Rostov regional governor, Vasily Golubev, said that fragments of 2 drones were found on the territory of the plant. The refinery said it temporarily suspended operations to assess the damage. Wednesday's attack on the refinery follows a series of explosions and fires in western Russia amid Moscow's fighting in Ukraine in an operation that began nearly 4 months ago. In April, 2 Ukrainian helicopter gunships struck an oil depot in Volgorod, according to Russian officials, causing a massive fire. Good job, Ukraine. Several other explosions and fires hit refineries, oil depots, and an ammunition storage facility. Ukraine hasn't officially taken responsibility for the incidents, but some Ukrainian media have lauded them as results of Ukrainian strikes. Awesome. So they have been striking back. That's cool. I've suggested in past months that they should consider striking into Russia like Russia's attacking them if they have the chance, and looks like they have been trying to do that. UK plans to rewrite human rights laws. Critics cry foul. The British government on Wednesday unveiled plans for a Bill of Rights it says will strengthen free speech and the power of Parliament, but that critics argue will rip up human rights protections for ordinary people. The government published the bill days after courts in the UK and Europe on human rights grounds stopped Prime Minister Boris Johnson's Conservative administration deporting people seeking asylum in Britain to Rwanda. If approved by Parliament, where it faces a battle, the legislation will raise the bar by bringing human rights legal claims. It will reduce the ability of foreign nationals convicted of a crime in Britain to challenge deportation on the basis of their human rights. The government says the goal is to reduce trivial and frivolous claims. The law will also give... So they're saying that human rights are trivial and frivolous? The law will also give British courts the power to ignore rulings by the European Court of Human Rights, currently the ultimate arbiter of rights law for dozens of countries. Okay, that sounds horrible. Including the UK. It was an ECHR judge who ruled last week that the Iraqi man should not be sent to Rwanda under the government's controversial deportation plan, a judgment that led to the flight being grounded. Justice Secretary Dominic Raab and the bills, which would replace the UK's Human Rights Act, would curb abuses of the system and inject a bit more common sense into human rights law. Raab said Britain would retain its fundamental commitment to the European Convention on Human Rights, but its move could set it on a collision course with the Council of Europe, which oversees the Strasbourg-based Rights Court. The government depicted the Bill of Rights as an assertion of British sovereignty in the wake of the country's departure from the European Union. However, the European Court of Human Rights is unconnected to the EU. It is an international tribunal supported by 46 countries. Rights groups said the government's move would remove some of the main tools the public has to hold the powerful to account. Wonderful. So that's the state of the UK right now, which, don't forget, Boris Johnson is a conservative, and conservatives believe in small government, except when it comes to them in charge, and then they want to have all the control. Because that's how democracy works, apparently. Moving on. Diary of 12-year-old Ukrainian refugee to be released. That's what, like a sequel to the Diary of Anne Frank? That's alright. We're not even clicking on that. Inflation is soaring, we know. For those in the US, don't forget that inflation is soaring everywhere. It's soaring in Canada, it's soaring in the United States, it's soaring in Mexico, it's soaring in Europe, it's soaring in Asia. It's just, inflation is just high, period. So saying this is Biden's fault or saying this is Trudeau's fault is just a bunch of malarkey by people who are ignorant and don't know what they're talking about. Thus why there are so many articles here about inflation and shit like that. China says Ukraine crisis has sounded alarm for humanity. Oh, this should be interesting. The conflict in Ukraine has sounded an alarm for humanity, Chinese leader Xi Jinping said. Yeah, but you also have sounded an alarm for humanity. I don't understand how that is anything. As China continues to assume a position of neutrality while backing its ally, Russia. China has refused to criticize Russia's war in Ukraine or even to refer to it as an invasion in deference to Moscow, while also condemning US-led sanctions against Russia and accusing the West of provoking Moscow. The Ukraine crisis has again sounded the alarm for humanity. Countries will surely end up in security hardships if they place blind faith in their positions of strength, expand military alliances, and seek their own safety at the expense of others. Let me read that. Countries will surely end up in security hardships if they place blind faith in their positions of strength, expand military alliances, and seek their own safety at the expense of others. You mean like you're doing? I don't understand where we're going with this. Xi, who did not propose any solutions, was speaking at the opening of a virtual business forum. In fact, he seems more interested in pushing the problem than any kind of solution. In other comments, Xi said imposing sanctions would act as a boomerang and a double-edged sword, and that the global community would suffer from politicizing, mechanizing, and weaponizing global economic trends and financial flows. What about what the fuck Russia's doing, huh? What about that? Xi also said China would seek to reduce the damage to international supply chains caused by the COVID-19 pandemic, which it has confronted with a hardline policy of lockdowns and quarantines despite a diminishing number of cases and increasing economic cost. China's increasingly assertive foreign policy and drive to dominate global markets has prompted a backlash in the US, Europe, and elsewhere, including calls to replace Chinese suppliers and reduce reliance on the Chinese economy. Xi called so really what he's saying is don't sanction Russia because we know we're next. Is what he's saying. Alright. Good stuff, Xi. Keep at it. Moving on. Yeah, Zelensky talking to some students. Whoop-de-doo. It seems to be all Canada's talking about right now. James Ratto, who co-created Pioneering Hair, dies at 90. That's a musical? Yes. So the co-creator of the musical Hair has died. He was 90 years old. That's sad. That's very sad. We're going to tweet that. Hashtag Broadway. Hashtag musicals. There. That's something I don't think was picked up by too many people. Hair is certainly not the worst musical I've ever seen. And people get naked in it, so I mean, what more do you need? Probably trying to issue weapons check due to increased don't care. I mean, Good for them, but whatever. Hopefully nothing bad happened at that Pride March. Yes, I'd read about this. So it's not murder. They left him in the car, assuming that he'd be able to get out of the seat, but I guess they figured that his seat bug must have got stuck, and so they just left him in the car for hours. For they're like, wait, where's Billy Bob or whatever? And they went to the car and found Billy Bob horribly dead. That's pretty horrible. But it sounds like it's not murder. Cooper died after sitting for about 7 hours in the backseat of the vehicle. Oh, that might actually be a different story than that story. So there's multiple stories of kids horribly dying in a car. That's nice. Apparently it happens all the time. Note to you guys, do not leave your children in cars to die horribly of heat exhaustion. Don't do it. If you're gonna leave your kid in the car, leave, and it's super hot, leave the air conditioning on. Just leave the keys and leave the air conditioning on. You're gonna use up some gas. I know gas is super expensive, but I think you'd rather spend $20 in gas than kill your child, is what I'm saying. I'm just saying. Kind of like, you know, maybe banning guns might be worth it, even if it doesn't save every child in the world, even if it only saves thousands of children, and some guns will be black market guns and shootings will still happen just on a smaller scale and thousands less children will die. I know that's not every child that won't die, but like it still seems pretty worth it to me. You know, if it even only saved 10 children, I still think banning guns would be worth it. I mean, I don't think guns are worth 10 people dying, but apparently a lot of people disagree. 10 children. Just not keep forgetting that that's children. But anyway, we're moving on. U.S. importing baby formula from Mexico to ease shortage. Thank you, Mexico. It's just like, what's that movie? Day After Tomorrow. At the end of the Day After Tomorrow, there's a scene where Mexico is like, we accept all refugees to Mexico. Come to Mexico, where we are the greatest nation in the world now, because we're the only ones that don't have climate change. Or the climate changed in such a way that now our arid regions are all awesome and sexy, and everybody wants to live here in Mexico. And suddenly they're like the US of the world. It's pretty funny. Moving on. Walmart expands health services to address racial inequality. Good for them. Price of gas leaps nearly 50% in May from a year earlier. Yes, we've noticed. Alberta premier oil sands execs in U.S. capital to rehabilitate Canada's energy image. Good luck with that. Car factory workers block key motorway in Serbia capital. Why? Are they on strike in Serbia? Dozens of Serbian car factory workers on Wednesday blocked a key motorway in the capital Belgrade to protest layoff and relocation plans. Good for them. How many people? Who knows, but it's a union-led strike. Alright, cool. Good for them. Moving on. More than half of Ontarians can't afford a home in current city, poll finds. Yeah, I'm one of those. Hi. I'm one of those more than half. Russian cyber spying targets 42 Ukraine allies. Coinciding with unrelenting cyber attacks from Ukraine, state-backed Russian hackers have engaged in strategic espionage against governments, think tanks, businesses, and aid groups in 42 countries supporting Kiev, Microsoft said in a report Wednesday. Since the start of the war, the Russian targeting of Ukraine's allies has been successful 29% of the time, Microsoft President Brad Smith wrote, with data stolen in at least 1/4 of the successful network intrusions. Nearly 2/3 of cyber espionage targets involved NATO members. The United States was a prime target, and Poland, the main conduit for military systems flowing to Ukraine, was number 2. In the past 2 months, Denmark, Norway, Finland, Sweden, and Turkey have seen stepped up targeting. A striking exception is Estonia, where Microsoft said it has detected no Russian cyber intrusions since Russia invaded Ukraine on February 24th. The company credited Estonia's adoption of cloud computing, where it's easier to detect intruders. Significant collective defensive weaknesses remain among some other European governments, Microsoft said without identifying them. Half of the 128 organizations targeted are government agencies and 12% are non-governmental agencies, typically think tanks or humanitarian groups, according to the 28-page report. It's good to know only 12% is normal people. Other targets include telecommunications, energy, and defense companies. Microsoft said Ukraine's cyber defenses have proven stronger overall than Russia's capabilities in waves of destructive cyber attacks against 48 distinct Ukrainian agencies and enterprises. Well, I've heard Ukraine literally has its own, secret underground bunker where it's hiding a think tank of hackers of its own that it uses to counter Russia's bullshit and do hacking missions against Russia and shit. So, I mean, go Ukraine. During the past month, as the Russian military moved to concentrate its attacks in the Donbass region, the number of destructive attacks has fallen, according to the report. Defending Ukraine, a early lesson from the cyber war. The Redmond, Washington company has unique insight in the domain due to the ubiquity of its software and threat detection teams. Microsoft said Ukraine has also set an example in data safeguarding. Ukraine went from storing its data locally on servers in government buildings a week before the Russian invasion, making them vulnerable to aerial attack, to dispersing that data in the cloud, hosted in data centers across Europe. The report also assessed Russian disinformation and propaganda aimed at undermining Western unity and deflecting criticism of Russian military war crimes and wooing people in non-aligned countries. Using artificial intelligence tools, Microsoft said it estimated Russian cyber influence operations successfully increased the spread of Russian propaganda after the war began by 216% in Ukraine and 82% in the United States. Interesting. You know what, maybe we should post that, because that was so interesting. So we're going to post it on Twitter. And it's been posted. Alright, moving on. Myanmar's Suu Kyi moved from secret location to prison. That's wonderful. But didn't she just... I remember I read an article a couple days ago where they were like, guess what? Myanmar just gave her a cake because it's her birthday. Yay! She's being treated so well while being imprisoned and potentially tortured for literally nothing. Yes, well. PBO says Trans Mountain Pipeline to result in net loss for government. Well, that's exciting. Gotta love net losses. Almost 100,000 mail ballots in federal election not counted. Most arrived late. Well, that's not good. That's why maybe it's better to go to the polls. If you can. Canadian director Deborah Chow on expanding the inclusive galaxy of Star Wars. Good for her, keep it up. Moderna's new booster appears effective against Omicron subvariant, so there's going to be a new booster focused on Omicron coming out soon. Senator Kevin Kramer injures hand, may face finger amputation. Well, that's horrible. The Republican lawmaker said he was working in his yard over the weekend when he sustained the injury that required immediate surgery. I continue to remain in North Dakota close to medical care as there is a high risk of infection and the possible need for amputation. I am alert and in good spirits. Sounds horrible. What the fuck did he do? I don't even want to know what the fuck he did to his hand, but that sounds gross. A man who drove his car through crowds of people in Times Square in 2017, killing a young tourist and maiming helpless pedestrians, was cleared of responsibility Wednesday because of mental illness. A jury in New York City accepted an insanity defense claiming Richard Rojas was so psychologically disturbed he didn't know what he was doing. Well, then why did he have a driver's license? The judge has said the finding would qualify Rojas for an open-ended involuntary mental commitment instead of lengthy prison term. Rojas, 31, was accused in an attack that injured more than 20 people and killed Alyssa Elsman, 18, of Michigan, who was visiting the popular tourist destination with her family. The jury was instructed that if it found prosecutors had proven their case, it also had to decide whether or not he lacked responsibility for reason of mental disease or defect. The trial, which began early last month, featured testimony from victims who suffered severe injuries from what prosecutors labeled a horrific, depraved act. On the defense side, family members testified how Rojas descended into paranoia after he was kicked out of the Navy in 2014. That Rojas was behind the wheel of the car was never in doubt. Multiple security videos showed him emerging from the vehicle after it crashed. That put the focus of the case on his mental state. In his closing argument, prosecutor Alfred Peterson conceded that Rojas was having a psychotic episode, including hearing voices at the time of the rampage. But Peterson argued Rojas showed he wasn't entirely detached from reality by maneuvering his vehicle onto the sidewalk and driving with precision for 3 blocks, mowing down people until he crashed. What? One victim's pelvis was separated from her spine. What? Doctors were certain she would die, but somehow survived. What? Elsman's younger sister Ava, then 13, testified during the trial about her own injuries, broken ribs, a collapsed lung, a compound leg fracture, and other wounds that kept her in the hospital for weeks. The defendant made a decision that day. He made a choice. He went to the crossroads of the world, a high-profile place where everyone knows there's lots and lots of people. Once there, he was in full control of his car, he added. Defense lawyer Enrico DeMarco told jurors there should be no doubt his client met the legal standard for an insanity finding. The evidence, the lawyer said, showed Rojas lacked a substantial capacity to know what he was doing was wrong. He didn't know that driving over people was wrong? DeMarco played a videotape in the courtroom of Rojas jumping out of his car after it slammed into the sidewalk, stanchion. Rojas could be heard yelling, "What happened? Oh my God, what happened?" as he was being subdued and could be seen banging his head on the ground. Rojas, the attorney said, lost his mind. Well, that all sounds horrible. That all sounds absolutely horrible in every conceivable way. And I don't think I have anything else to add to that. In fact, I'm gonna tweet about that and how horrible that is. And say on Twitter what I said here. Well, that's horrible. Alright, moving on. Police arrest Bonnie and Clyde duo after armed carjacking in Burlington. Okay. Toronto canceling 169 swim instructor courses due to lifeguard shortage. My tummy hurts. I'm gonna be right back. I got myself some yogurt. Hopefully that'll help. At least in the short term. Gotta admit, don't really have much interest in that Elvis movie. I've heard apparently there's a 4-hour cut of the movie, is what the director says. He has a 4-hour cut of Elvis, so that's interesting. Toronto's Taste of Danforth Festival cancelled. Yes, I saw that on the news. Where? Layoffs in the cannabis industry, apparently. Ten new monkeypox cases in Toronto. Okay. Suspected monkeypox. There's a lot of suspected monkeypox cases on that one day. Jeez. And now they're all suspected. I guess they need to be tested to be confirmed. One suspected case all the way back here. Interesting. Hmm. Do. January 6th hearings. What we've learned and what's next. The House Committee investigating the Capitol insurrection heard from election workers and state officials on Tuesday as they described President Donald Trump's pressure to overturn his 2020 election defeat. On Thursday, the 9-member panel will hear from former Justice Department officials who refused Trump's entreaties to declare the election corrupt. The committee's 4th and 5th hearings held this week are part of an effort to show how Trump's pressure eventually shifted to Congress, where his false declarations of widespread election fraud led directly to the riot on January 6, 2021, when hundreds of his supporters violently breached the Capitol and interrupted the certification of President Joe Biden's election victory. In July, the panel will hold at least 2 more hearings that are expected to focus on the far-right domestic extremists who attacked the Capitol and what Trump was doing inside the White House as violence unfolded. Cool, keep at it. That's what I say. Licensed childcare operators can opt into new funding programs starting Thursday. Blah, blah, blah. Moving on. More than 330 Hudson Bay warehouse workers on strike over wages, but I mean, nobody shops at the Hudson Bay anymore anyway. Florida team hauls an 18-foot, 215-pound Burmese python. That sounds like a really heavy snake. It had 122 developing eggs. Okay, so these pythons are an invasive species, killing native wildlife, and to get rid of them, the easiest way to do it is to disrupt their breeding cycle by removing the females. So by removing this female, they remove literally, as I said, 112 eggs. Like, holy shit. These are huge ass pythons. That's fucked. But okay. Cool. Lightning strike kills woman, 2 dogs. And, oh, that's horrible. Killed the dogs too? So the lightning traveled through the leash? Or was it just a really big hit? It's fucked. Absolutely fucked. Ontario school locked down for a second time. Oh no, was it a shooter? No, it was a bear. Sorry. Tony Siragusa, who helped Ravens win Super Bowl, dies at 55. Well, that's fucked. The charismatic defensive tackle. I don't know anything about sports, but that sounds sad. Man pleads not guilty to trying to kill Justice Kavanaugh. It was a friendship machete. Armed with a gun and a knife. I heard it was a machete. Anyway. Brazilian judge probed for blocking abortion for rape child. Good, you do that. Mexico scientist gets 4 years for spying for Russia in Miami. How the fuck did that happen? A prominent Mexican scientist who led a double life with 2 families on separate continents and was co-opted by Russian agents into surveilling a U.S. government informant residing in Miami has been sentenced to 4 years and 1 day in federal prison. Can we get a movie about that? That was a fucked up story. I don't think I need to read anymore. That first sentence was enough. I've had my share of soap opera drama just from that. Moving on. Um, Swimmer injured by shark attack on Central California coast. Watch out for sharks. Lawsuit says hero who stopped gunmen shot without warning. The mother of a man hailed as a hero for killing a gunman who ambushed and fatally shot a police officer only to be killed himself by another officer in suburban Denver filed a lawsuit Wednesday alleging the officer who shot him should have realized he did not pose a threat. The lawsuit comes a day after... So, it was one of those, hey, if everybody had guns, then we can be protected from bad people with guns. There'll be good people with guns. But what happened was a good person with a gun killed the bad guy with a gun, and then a cop came and killed the good guy with a gun because he had a gun. And they didn't know any better. So that's fun. Which is what we assumed would happen. Like, this is what liberals have been saying forever every time somebody comes up with that stupid, well, the only way you can stop bad guy with the gun is good guy is the gun. Is no, because that just puts more guns in the crime zone, and then the police don't know who to shoot at. They don't know who the aggressor is and who the defensive hero is, the vigilante or whatever. Like, how does police officers who already have a bad enough job trying to make good choices in stressful situations are supposed to be able to properly gauge who the good person with the gun is and who the bad person with the gun is? It's not going to happen. The wrong person is going to get shot like way too many times for that to be a reasonable solution. And that article was proof. Probably should have posted it then. Yeah, I am going to post that. So, let me get this straight. A good guy with a gun stopped a bad guy with a gun. And then a cop came and killed the good guy with a gun. Fun. Alright. Tweet. We're tweeting away, that's what we are. That was the sound of the tweet. Hey Xbox, unmute. Thank you. Nearly 100,000 stolen from ex-NBA player Vince Carter's home. $100,000 in cash. He just kept $100,000 worth of cash in his home. I've heard that that is a racial thing. That apparently people of color are more likely to not use banks and rely on other methods of storing cash for whatever reason. Like they don't trust banks. That banks have in the past probably done all kinds of horrible things to people of color, or you know, racist things that have affected their money. But then the problem is, that's what We Own the City was kind of about. It was talking about how the cops would take advantage of that then, because then when they would raid houses, even if it wasn't a drug bust, like, oh, there's no drugs here, but we found all this cash that we can say must have been from drugs, when really it was just the way that these people were storing their money because they didn't like using banks. And so they were just taking like these life savings of these poor people as drug money. It's all fucking bullshit, but what can you do? Wow. They were in the house when the robbers showed up, and the wife and kids hid in the closet. Jesus, can you imagine this? And this is fucking the family of Vince Carter. Neither Sandy Carter nor her children were hurt, but police said a front window in the main house had been smashed. Outside, officers found a large amount of $100 bills spilled on the ground, along with a gold Desert Eagle pistol and a black Glock 26 pistol with an extended magazine. What? The Desert Eagle belonged to Carter, but investigators believe the Glock was carried by the suspect. Why are there so many guns involved in this story? While in the closet, Carter later told police she could hear someone rummaging through the different rooms upstairs. Did you call the cops while this was happening? According to the report, multiple rooms... I think it said she did call the cops while she was in the closet. Multiple rooms were... So they didn't catch the person who did this? Fulton County property records show the home, built in 2016, is owned by Vince Carter, who played 22 seasons in the NBA before retiring with the Hawks in 2020. Carter bought the home, which sits on nearly an acre and a half of land, for nearly $7 million in August 2020, property records show. A real estate listing described the property as a family compound with state-of-the-art home security that well, it didn't seem to work. Police have not publicly identified a suspect, but the incident report said a fingerprint from the suspect was collected from the scene. Carter, who now works as an NBA analyst for ESPN, has not responded to requests for comment from the newspaper. That's interesting. My Twitter, by the way, is at Andrew Geczy, AndrewGeczy, if you want to follow me there. I think there's links somewhere on the page. Up, down, side to side. I don't know. I do like this GIF, though, of Bizarro. I don't know what that's about. I don't even want to know the context for it, but that's funny. That's a cute little GIF. And I say GIF, by the way. And the creator of GIFs can suck my dick. Giuliani associate seeks to avoid prison at June sentencing. Yes, wouldn't we all seek to avoid that? Teacher denies he made black students pick seeds from cotton. Do we even want to click on that? Or can we just move on? I think we're moving on. Nope, we're clicking on it. A white school teacher in Rochester accused of telling his class of mostly black students to pick seeds on cotton during a history lesson said in a lawsuit that allegations against him are false. Patrick Roche said in a lawsuit filed Friday that he brought a bag of unprocessed cotton into a 7th grade social studies classroom in April to demonstrate how difficult it was to pick cotton seeds out by hand. But he said he made it clear that he was not requiring any students to touch the cotton and remove the seeds. It was voluntary, according to the lawsuit. And so they're calling that racist? I mean, isn't that just sort of like he's teaching about race? Because he's like, hey, look, this is what people had to do when they were enslaved or whatever. I guess that can be horrible. An allegation that he forced black students to handle the cotton while white students could return to their laptops. The lawsuit said it's also untrue that he made a student put on handcuffs, that he referred to himself as massa. I mean, who knows what the reality of that situation is. We're moving on. People are suffering. Renewed calls for Doug Ford to raise ODSP rates. Father of kids killed by drunk driver tasered, arrested hours before his death by suicide. What? The father of 3 children killed by drunk driver Marco Muzzo in 2015 was visited by police and charged hours before his death by suicide. Peel Regional Police confirmed to State News that they were called to the home of Edward Lake on Father's Day to investigate an altercation. Police say when the officers arrived, an altercation occurred between Lake and police, which resulted in Lake being tasered. He was in charge with 1 count of assault, released into the custody of paramedics, who transported him to a hospital where he was assessed and later released. Officers notified victim services of the incident, and Mr. Lake was also provided with contact information. The Peel Regional Police had no further interaction with Mr. Lake once he was transported to the hospital. Police added that they had previously been called to the home, but did not provide any further details citing privacy reasons. Lake, whose children, 9-year-old Daniel Neville Lake, 5-year-old brother Harrison, and 2-year-old sister Millie, along with the children's 65-year-old grandfather Gary Neville, were killed in a September 2015 crash in Vaughan, was found dead the next morning of an apparent suicide. That just is a horribly tragic story. Jennifer Neville Lake, the children's mother, shared a post on Twitter Sunday on Father's Day with a photo of the children's gravestone with a tweet that said Father's Day 2022. This shouldn't be real. It can't be. 7 years after it happened. On Monday night, she tweeted out a photo of the family on Monday with a caption: "The eyes he shared with Harry are forever closed. Daniel's curls will never shine in the sun." This is such a sad story. "I will never see Millie's shy smile creep across his lips." I don't even know why I'm still reading it. "My children's father, Edward Lake, has joined our kids so they can play together forever." Mahal Kita, Edward. "We are aware of and saddened by Mr. Lake's tragic death, as well as the tragic circumstances that this family has faced." I guess the reason why I'm reading this is because it just goes to show the way certain events like this can lead to long-term suffering and grief, and like something that happened back in 2015, and now today, finally, the father was brought to a breaking point, and now he's killed himself, and it's horrible. And this is the way that horrible things lead to more horrible things and compound on each other. Horrible. Multiple people killed in a helicopter crash in WVA in West Virginia. MPs passed extreme intoxication bill in expedited process. Senate ways doing the same. So what is this extreme intoxication bill? The bill would amend the criminal code to create criminal liability in case of violent crime where the offender can prove they were in a state of negligent, self-induced extreme intoxication. It would create criminal, so it would stop people from blaming alcohol is what this is saying. Well, that would be nice. If true. Former Tesla worker rejects 15 million, because that's not an excuse. Alcohol's not an excuse. Don't drink then, for fuck's sake, if you can't control yourself when you're drunk. Smoke weed instead. People don't smoke weed and then go out and kill people. That's not something that happens. 4 people wounded by man on stabbing rampage in New Zealand, which is something that whenever you hear about, oh, there was a horrible mass killing in New Zealand, this dude had a fucking pocket knife and he went wild, and it's like, yeah, what he didn't have was a gun, because they banned their guns. And so, or that might have been like 19 kids, like in the Uvalde incident. Instead, the best you could do was stab some people with a knife. And that's what happens when you ban guns, and that's why it's worth it. Because guess what? A guy with a knife is probably also a lot easier to take down than a guy with a gun. In Colorado, GOP rarity an abortion rights candidate. So they're saying that someone on the conservative side is running who happens to support abortion rights. Well, that's cool. I'm not clicking on it, but that's cool. Sometimes you get enough from the headline. China hosts BRICS meeting amid rising economic concerns. China drops BRICS in the economic toilet. Survivors dig by hand after Afghanistan quake killing 1,000. It's horrible. Asian stocks higher after Wall Street declines and growth worries. Yeah, of course. Alright. Next. Let's do Vice. Vice is more news focused. And then we'll move into the more entertainment side of things. But first, I'm going to go smoke a bowl. BRB. A bowl of marijuana, for the record. Not, crack? Not crack. Sorry. My headset fell on the ground there. Alright, let's see what we got. You could win this drug lord mansion in Mexico City for just $10. I'm sorry, what? Tell me more. Alright. This year's lottery is headlined by a gaudy mansion in an affluent suburb of Mexico City, once owned by the infamous cartel kingpin Armada Carullo Fuentes, aka El Señor de los Cielos, or the Lord of the Skies in English. Okay. Weird. That's about all to that story. But for non-Mexicans wanting to win the lottery, there's a hitch. Only Mexican citizens will be allowed to own any asset on the beach, so foreigners will win those lots. Who win those lots will be paid out in cash instead. Okay. Weird. Weird. The disturbing and illegal Japanese industry of childlike sex dolls. I heard there's been, oh dear God. I heard there's been a push for these. Much like a real child would, the doll in the photo holds a box of crayons, looking poised to scribble on the studio's bare walls. Nope. She's standing at first, but just a few clicks into the website slideshow, she's seen seated with her legs spread apart. Nope. She wears nothing, and her nope. Bad. Very, very bad. Definitely no. No. After shooting, Uvalde's Robb Elementary School will be demolished. Robb Elementary School, where 19 children and 2 teachers were massacred last month in Uvalde, Texas, will be demolished. Wow. A new school will reportedly be built in its place. My understanding, and I had this discussion with the school district superintendent, is that the school will be demolished. Uvalde Mayor Don McLaughlin told the Uvalde City Council on Tuesday evening, "You can never ask a child to go back or a teacher to go back in that school ever." I don't know, that feels a lot like a waste of money to me. Unless it was like already on the throes of being rebuilt. Like, was it falling apart, or? Not the first time. The decision echoes one taken in Newton, Connecticut, where the Sandy Hook School building was razed and replaced with a new structure after 26 people, including 20 children, were killed during a mass shooting. There are still multiple ongoing investigations into the Uvalde shooting, as well as investigations into how the police responded to the threat. Police officers have been accused of failing to intervene earlier in the attack, and more than a dozen armed officers waited for more than an hour outside the unlocked doors of the classrooms while the gunman was inside. In Uvalde and around the country, there is a lot of anger about police inaction, there was a lot of anger, and then weeks went by, and now people have forgotten as usual. And everything's gone back to normal. Bill Cosby sexually assaulted a teen in Playboy Mansion. Civil jury finds. Well, cool. LFO, it's up to the civil jury to decide whether or not that happened. Ted Cruz claims to be world's most annoying type of gamer. Tell me more. I don't know why I care, but tell me more. A concerned gamer wrote into Senator Ted Cruz's podcast to ask how he feels about loot boxes. Yes, Ted Cruz has a podcast where he talks about loot boxes. My editor made me double check. We as a society have consequently learned so much more about how Cruz feels about gaming than we have ever wanted to know. If you don't immediately associate Cruz with video games, you are forgiven. Normally, when one talks about the man, they're talking about the state of gun rights laws in his state of Texas, or abortion access, or the many times in which he has been publicly embarrassed, or the time when he chose to leave Texas to go on vacation at the same time as a massive blizzard hit his state and like killed a lot of people and took out power to like a lot of the area, and he was just like gone to like Barbados or something. According to an email read on Cruz's podcast seeking comment from the failed presidential candidate, the internet user Asmongold, like the Asmongold, because it's not just like a nobody, wanted to know what the senator's stance on lock boxes was, and we now know. What's he doing listening to Cruz's podcast anyway? If you want to know the actual answer to the question, it is this. Like a good libertarian, Cruz is concerned about scenarios where children are put in harm's way, like being encouraged to gamble, but doesn't believe the government should be involved. When it comes to his personal use, though, apparently Senator Cruz does in fact pay to win regularly in the video games that he claims to play. Now, I'm something of a gamer. I'm not a gamer like hardcore Twitch streamers, and I don't do the massive multiplayer games, Cruz said. I'll tell you, I don't like it when you can buy in-game items and sort of make your character stronger or get advantages. Now, I'll confess when I play some games, I'll sometimes buy it because it is more fun in some way. Your character has a lot more great stuff that would take you 6 months or a year to build up. Motherboard emailed Ted Cruz's office to ask what games he's playing and what he's spending money on, but they did not immediately reply. He must have been too busy suspiciously not denying that he is a Zodiac killer and hanging out with his father, who may or may not have been complicit in the assassination of JFK. Cruz concluded the segment by saying that he is open to hearing arguments about loot boxes, but doesn't think it's a government issue, which is strange, because his personal experience of loot boxes and free-to-play mechanics seem to perfectly line up with all the arguments that call these monetization schemes manipulative and addictive precisely in ways that demand government attention, if not oversight. In a bizarre aside, he also wanted to add that he loves the movie Ready Player One, which probably no one other than him has ever both watched and enjoyed. It's true. I've seen it several times. But I just happened to do a rewatch last week. Oh, Ted Cruz. Why? Summarizing the plot of the film about people obsessed with virtual reality, which probably even its famed director Steven Spielberg didn't repeatedly watch willingly. People amass money in virtual reality and it ends up, for many people, subsuming the world. There are hard challenges, and we're not yet to the dystopian world of Ready Player One. But, well, we might be on a path towards that. Was Ready Player One a dystopian? I don't remember being that dystopian. Anyway, next time you log on to the Oasis to look for another... I mean, I only watched the movie once. I was not going to be ever rewatching that movie, but... yeah. I wish he told us what his gamer thing was, so that I would know whether or not I'd ever been killed by Ted Cruz. Just saying that out loud, I can't. After years of perpetrating housing discrimination, Facebook gets $115,055 fine. How? What? How? Facebook... Why do they always do Facebook with the weird little doohickey after it? Meta platforms. Okay. Agreed to stop discriminatory targeted advertising practices on Tuesday in a settlement with the Department of Justice. The settlement claimed that the company's housing ad algorithms violated the Fair Housing Act, which prohibits housing discrimination on the basis of race, sex, disability, familial status, and national origin. Under the settlement, which still needs to be approved by a judge in the Southern District of New York, where a lawsuit against the company was originally filed, Meta is required to develop a new system for housing ads by the end of 2022 and pay a fine of $115,000, which honestly isn't much to them. The maximum penalty available under the Fair Housing Act. The fine itself is less than a slap on the wrist for one of the world's largest companies, as I just said, and is less than Facebook pays an entry-level employee annually. Which also, nice. Kind of wish I was working at Facebook. But the settlement is notable because it is the first time a company has been sanctioned for algorithmic bias under the Fair Housing Act. The settlement also means that Facebook can no longer use a specific ad targeting algorithm, which targeted or specifically didn't target people based in part on protected characteristics. According to the DOJ's press release, this settlement marks the first time that Meta will be subject to court oversight for its ad targeting and delivery system. The Justice Department is committed to holding Meta and other technology companies accountable when they abuse algorithms in ways that unlawfully harm marginalized communities, Assistant Attorney General Kirsten Clark of the Justice Department's Civil Rights Division said in the same statement. This settlement is the latest in a series of investigations against Facebook for its discriminatory ad systems. In 2018, the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development filed a complaint against Facebook, alleging that it violated the Fair Housing Act by allowing advertisers to exclude users by gender, disability, religion, and zip codes. Oh, jeez. That's true. It does let you do that. Interesting. Pornhub's top executives to step down. Australian woman's father-in-law arrested for killing her with an axe. Well, that's horrible. Okay, well, that's horrible. What? According to police, the victim's father witnessed a horrific killing when he arrived at his daughter's father-in-law Mukhtar Ahmed's home on June 11th. I saw that Mukhtar Ahmed had stuffed Tasneem's mouth with cotton to muffle her shrieks as he was swinging an axe down on her head. Jesus Christ. His daughter Sajida Tasneem, an Australian national, died on the spot. He also threatened to kill me if I tried saving my daughter. After that, he fled with the axe, and my daughter succumbed to her injuries. Jesus Christ, can you imagine being witness to that? Fuck. She had 3 children. Jesus. Who are currently with her father. That's fucked up. Alright, next. Call of Duty devs, tell us what it's like to make a game in the wake of a mass shooting, okay? Jeez. While walking through the store, this is after a 2012 Sandy Hook disaster. While walking through the store, Michael, who asked to use a pseudonym because he worried about a potential published backlash, was approached multiple times by other people who were also processing the unfolding tragedy. These people told Michael he should be ashamed for working on Call of Duty. He, these people argued to his face, was partially responsible for the school shooting. Jesus Christ. I empathize with people who are hurting, but I don't agree that games are the main culprit, said Michael, who no longer works at Infinity Ward, but has continued to work on games centered around guns in a recent interview. I take their grief not as a personal attack, it's more of a reflection on the struggle to make sense of why our government continues to fail them. Call of Duty games and shooters more broadly are an inseparable part of gun culture in the United States. I don't own a gun and I have no interest in owning one, but even I know the difference between an M4 and M16 rifle. And the only reason is that video games slavishly recreate and fetishize them. There's a close cultural and commercial relationship between real guns and video game guns, but the people who make these video games rarely talk about mass shootings in relation to their work. However, after the recent massacre in Uvalde, Texas, that left 19 school children and 2 teachers dead, the 246th mass shooting in the United States in 2020... I'm sorry, what? Can we say that again? The 246th mass shooting in the United States in 2022 alone. What? What? That's fucked. All of them found value in their work, but were left wondering if the United States' uniquely ugly relationship with guns means their games are having unintended impacts. A screenshot from the original Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 is that, I guess. La-di-da. It's hard not to be distracted on any news day, but especially after events like these, where there are clear parallels between U.S. gun culture and shooters' contribution to that culture, said one current Call of Duty developer who asked to remain anonymous to avoid potential backlash. I do think the context of who is wielding the gun against who matters. A game like Wolfenstein kicks back against toxic gun culture by centering its conflict on resistance to Nazi villains. But more often, I think shooters lionize and whitewash colonial violence, which these attacks are often examples of. And it does bother me and negatively impacts my mental health to contribute to games that I feel are culturally complicit. See, I just think, why go after the games but refuse to go after the guns? That's fucking insane. Activision Blizzard did not respond to a request to comment. Wow, I'm surprised. You don't want to comment on how your games are destroying culture and causing mass shootings? I don't think it's true. I don't believe it. I don't believe it. I don't think it's true. We're moving on. I think you should ban guns because here's the thing that's so fun, that I find just so fun, is the fact that those games are played around the world, right? All around the world. They're played here in Canada, they're played in Australia, they're played in New Zealand, where they've got fucking people with knives. And you can see that there is a vast drop in gun violence outside of the United States from all these other countries that play just as much video games. Just as many. I played just as many video games as someone in the United States, and I know that people in New Zealand play a lot of video games too. So this idea that gun violence is created by video games is complete bullshit, because video games is not unique to the United States. What's unique to the United States is the mass proliferation of guns. That's it. Did I use the word proliferation right? Rapid increase in numbers. Yeah, that works. So there you go. Stunning picture reveals weird polygons on Mars. I don't care. Ivanka said her dad would continue to fight while knowing he lost. Ivanka Trump said that her father should continue to fight until every legal remedy is exhausted to challenge his election loss, even though she'd already admitted she knew the claims underpinning those challenges were utter bullshit. Government and democracy are not a business. And you can't just fucking treat everything in the fucking universe like a business. Attorney General Bill Barr testified to the committee that he had told then President Donald Trump that his claims were bullshit and crazy stuff in a series of meetings in the weeks after the election, and Ivanka Trump said in a videotaped deposition that she'd accepted Barr's statements as fact. It affected my perspective. I respect Attorney General Barr, so I accepted what he was saying. But let's go to the next part of what she has to say. Ivanka Trump, a senior White House advisor during her father's presidency, justified her support for her dad's attempt to reject his election loss because, as she reportedly told the filmmaker, people were questioning the sanctity of our elections. I think that, as the president has said, every single vote needs to be counted and needs to be heard, and he campaigned for the voiceless. Ivanka Trump said, I think a lot of Americans feel very, very disenfranchised right now, and really question the sanctity of our elections, and that's not right. It's not acceptable, even if it's completely false. And he has to take on this fight. Look, you fight for what you love the most, and he loves this country, and he loves this country's people, and he wants to make sure that their vote is heard and not muted. But it is heard and not muted. But the reason people were questioning the election was because Ivanka's dad and his allies have spent months pushing a mountain of lies and conspiracy theories about the results, leading his followers to believe something had genuinely gone wrong with the 2020 election. And as then-President Trump pushed these lies, his daughter and senior advisor seemingly decided it was easier to go along than say anything to refute her dad. I love it. The GOP paved the way for the far right to terrorize Pride this year. Pride Month events around the country are stepping up security alongside a wave of attacks and violent threats from far-right extremists and a surge in anti-LGBTQ rhetoric from the GOP. In Tulsa, Oklahoma, Pride marshals are taking active shooter training for the first time as part of the preparations and have introduced new restrictions on bags people can bring to the main event. That's good. And Chicago's police superintendent recently said at a press conference that officers from the Joint Terrorism Task Force were working with the FBI and other federal agencies to gather intelligence and monitor for threats, particularly coming from individuals on watch lists ahead of the upcoming Pride Parade. For many cities, Pride festivities were resuming for the first time following a 2-year hiatus due to COVID, but what should be a celebrated return to business as usual has been hampered by the current climate of threats. Earlier this month, 31 members of the white nationalist group Patriot Front were arrested in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, piled into a U-Haul on their way to disrupt an annual Pride event. According to police, in recent weeks, neo-Nazis have circulated a video showing an anonymous person smashing a shop window featuring a Pride flag that bears the caption, "Do not tolerate evil." And a man in Whidbey Island, Washington, was arrested on charges of civil rights malicious harassment with a hate crime enhancement from his queer neighborhood enhancement after his queer neighbor raised alarm about his violent anti-LGBTQ social media posts, including ones that referenced upcoming Pride festivities and direct threats toward her. The current intensity of anti-LGBTQ rhetoric and activism has been fueled in part by the mainstreaming of groomer conspiracies, which traffic entire tropes about the LGBTQ community and sexual predation, and specifically on children. Far-right forums are also awash in violent rhetoric, likening Pride events to satanic rituals and saying members of the LGBTQ community should be hanged. Drag queen story hours. I'm sorry, what? Have been the latest target for this moral panic. That is a difficult sentence to understand. What is a drag queen story hour? Is that a place? Anyway, Proud Boys and other people have been pushing a lot of threats on Pride people and stuff, and it sucks. Cool, moving on. I mean, not cool, but we're still moving on. Uvalde police took cop's gun as he tried to save his dying wife in the classroom. You're kidding me. So one of the cops had someone in the school, and he had his gun taken away? That is insane. Colonel Steve McCraw, director of the Texas Department of Public Safety, described the police response as an abject failure as he outlined a detailed timeline from May 24th when gunmen killed 19 children and 2 teachers. McGraw said there were enough officers and firepower, including rifles and ballistic shield, to take down the shooter within minutes of police being on the scene, and said, at the instruction of Chief Pete Arredondo, officers waited more than an hour before eventually storming the classroom. Not all of the cops on the scene were content to wait around. McCraw said one of them, a school district officer, Ruben Ruiz, received a call from his wife, Eva Mireles. Mireles, a 44-year-old teacher, was trapped inside one of the classrooms with the gunman. She said she had been shot and was dying, McCraw testified at the hearing. He tried to move forward into the hallway. He was detained and they took his gun away from him and escorted him off the scene. Jesus Christ. Jesus Christ. McCraw said Arredondo decided to place the lives of the officers before the lives of children. He also said in addition to the lack of leadership shown on scene, the officers were being given misinformation that the chief was in negotiations with the subject and that he was contained. Arredondo was quietly sworn in as Uvalde City Council member after the shooting. He was elected before the shooting took place. Last night, council decided not to grant him the leave of absence he requested, which means his seat could be declared vacant if he misses 2 more meetings in a row. Mayor Don McLaughlin said he was fed up with the lack of transparency surrounding the response to the shooting, and that he was going to throw people under the bus. Yeah. Everyone needs to be held accountable, Pete, for his inaction, every other officer who didn't do a damn thing, and every one of you who stands idly by, said Bet Cross, the uncle of one of the victims. That's fucked. No, Xbox, stop listening. Stop listening. Thank you. That's shitty. Earlier this month, the nation was charmed and enthralled by the story of 2 workers who were rescued by heroic first responders after falling into enormous containers of chocolate at an M&M Mars factory in Elizabethtown. Documents newly obtained by Motherboard from the Elizabethtown Police Department through a public records request, though, cast this chocolate catastrophe in a sinister light. According to an incident report filed the day of the accident, a police officer who was called to the scene learned that 2 males were cleaning out a chocolate container and the chocolate sludge, called liqueur, a mixture of chocolate beans and butter, had hardened around their legs. After rescue crews freed the men, he learned more. 2 men, according to the report, were in a container of chocolate sludge described as approximately 2 to 3 feet deep and very thick in consistency when it began to harden. A 3rd man jumped into the sludge in an attempt to free the 2 men, but to no avail. The men were trapped for 3 hours. One man on the scene told the officer that men are usually placed in harnesses and lowered into the containers. A fireman, though, told the officer that only one of the men had a harness on, suggesting the possibility of lax enforcement of workplace safety procedures around the dangerous chocolate sludge. A supplemental narrative filed by a second police officer adds more detail. This officer initially struggled to understand what was going on due to all the workers in EMS and fire department personnel on the scene. Due to the multitude of people and everything going on, it was hard for me to get a position where I could see the room where the chocolate container was located. The officer was later able to speak with workers, including the one who had managed to free himself because he did not have work boots on and was able to slip out of his shoes before the chocolate liquor hardened. Interestingly, according to the report, the trapped workers were not in fact employees of Mars Incorporated. What? The multinational company that owns the factory manufactures tasty M&Ms, treats, as well as other consumer products. Let's not forget that people walk around in their chocolate with their shoes on, apparently. They also appear not to have been working in the safest conditions. When talking with Redacted about what happened, he made the comment that the clearance between the top of the tank and the ceiling of the room is inadequate, and that he has voiced that opinion several times to Mars employees. Redacted said that since the top of the tank is so close to the ceiling, you cannot access the top of the tank and attempt to pull someone that may be trapped inside out. He also made the comment that the tank that they were working in had not been properly inspected before they had entered the tank to clean. You can read the full incident report below. Interesting. Sure, I'll post that. This cacao honey is a game changer, okay? Well, I'm not going to read that, but if you're interested, if you have a unapologetic sweet tooth, check out cacao honey, I guess. GPUs are the only thing getting cheaper right now, which you would think, mean more PS5s out there for us to buy. I could really use a PS5 right about now. I've been trying, man. I've been trying so hard. I had all day, literally all day long, I was watching this, waiting for for a PS5 to come in stock, and just nothing. Just nothing. Amazon has not had a PS5 since April, which is great. In the US, apparently they have this cool invitation system where you can be invited to queue up and get in line. But in Canada, they haven't had any stock since April. And they don't seem like they're going to be changing their minds anytime soon. So that's fun. Okay. This sounds absurd and ridiculous. A former police chief photoshopped his only Latino officer's face on a ball of hot sauce for the amusement of others in the department, a discrimination complaint alleges. The same chief was caught on video putting a KKK sign on a black officer's jacket last year. Horrible. Some people are horrible. That's what he looked like. He looks like somebody who would do something like that. Anyway. Conservative MPs met with anti-vaccine leaders inside Parliament as convoy plans to return to Ottawa. Oh no. Canadian authorities are preparing for the imminent return of the anti-vaccine convoy, warning that increasingly violent rhetoric from extremist groups aligned with the movement could pose a threat to politicians, police, and civilians. And we don't even have any pandemic restrictions going on right now. They're just doing it for fun because this whole time it's just been about them fucking shitting on libs. On Wednesday, these anti-vaccine groups kicked off a summer of planned protests with an event inside... You should have heard the other day, I happened to be in a store and this woman was going on and on about how you're gonna see everyone who's had the vaccine is gonna get AIDS, and people who have the vaccine are all, they have like, they don't have any white blood cells anymore, and their sperm is turned to shit, and I refuse to have sex with one because then they're gonna give me their disease. And it was insane, the shit she was yelling in this store, and I'm just like, gross. So gross. One convoy conspiracy influencer, an ex-stripper turned motivational speaker, has recently turned to telling crowds of cheering fans that the time for peaceful protest is over. Massive plan is at play, he vowed earlier this month. It's a male stripper? Okay. Leading even some in the movement worry that he could provoke violence with police. While one element of the anti-vaccine movement exercises increased political influence, other arms looking to get more radical, and that has intelligence agencies worried. Wonderful. Wunderbar. There's chance of violent assault. People are already angry. Blah 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 blah. This already goes on for a long time, doesn't it? Look at all this crazy shit. Blah 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 blah. You know what? I'll post it, but I won't read it. And it'll be up to other people to read if they want. What sort of hashtags can we put on this? Anti-vaccine, maybe? Anti-vaxxers. There we go. Anti-vaxxers. Hashtag anti-vax. Hashtag convoy. Convoy watch. Okay, cool. We'll stop there. It's enough hashtags. There we are. I feel like we've gotten all the information you really need from this, but if you want to know more, you can find the information on... Oops, I meant to also add it to... Control A, Control C, close that, pull up my notepad for my Geekly Weekly, add it there. Alright. Save. Done. Done. Alright, moving on. Jewel is an easy target. Let's ban more tech products that harm us. Let's do it! Yeah! Moving on to Collider. DComs everyone should watch at least. What is a DCom? Oh, just Disney Channel rom-com? Is that what a DCom is? Or a Disney comedy? What Disney comedies do you think everybody should watch? High School Musical, You Wish, The Cheetah Girls, Color of Friendship. I'm wondering how many of these I've actually seen. I've seen High School Musical. A long time ago I saw the Lizzie McGuire movie, which turns out doesn't have her friend in it, which is too bad. I don't remember that. And yeah, those are the only two of that list of 10 that I've seen. I am not a Disney alum, or Disney whatever master, after all. I haven't watched the Obi-Wan Kenobi finale yet. Still gotta do that. I'll do it tomorrow, perhaps. I fell asleep. I was gonna watch The Flash, and then I was gonna watch Obi-Wan Kenobi, and then I fell asleep, and then I woke up, and I'm doing this. Tomorrow when I do this, it'll probably happen at 11, and not quite this late. And I'll start by reminding you at the beginning to record all the late shows, like Daily Show, Colbert, Corden, all of those. And then when you're done this, you should go watch that. And that's the best way to keep up to date with everything that's going on. That's what I do. Anyway, that's where I'll be going after this. I'll be going to watch all the late shows before I pass out for the night. Which I already kind of passed out for like 4 hours, so... Hate when that happens. Hate it. Just hate it. Don't care, don't care. Padme, best costumes. Why are we looking at that? I don't know. Why not? Her hospital gown is at the bottom of the list, thank God. So it might be a little unfair, no shit. What's wrong with that one? That's not even really her though, is it? That's the handmaiden, isn't it? Her Tatooine disguise. Her Mustafar. Yeah, that one is kind of gross. I didn't realize that was such interesting velvet. Her Twilight nightgown. Her Geonosis battle gear, damn right, with the slash on the torso that just happens to look really snazzy. The throne room gown is the right answer. Yellow meadow dress, if you say so. The ombre lakeside dress. Okay, what about the one, is that the one where they got married in, or what? Which one did she get married in? Or is that one not featuring at all? Dumb. Dumb to dumb dumb. Moving on. See, it's fun to take a break from all the serious news and laugh at Star Wars dresses. Dark Winds renewed for season 2. That's good. I haven't even watched the second episode yet. I don't know if I even will. We could hear what Hayden Christensen has to say about his return as Darth Vader, but nah. If you say so. Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness IMAX format arrives on Disney Plus. That's cool. So you can watch it in IMAX. That's pretty exciting. Just means it takes away the black bars at the top and the bottom. Gives you a bit more of the picture. If you have the right TV for it. Then it looks awesome. Hunter Schafer joins the Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. That's the, she's from Euphoria. Rachel Zegler will co-star opposite. That's interesting. It's a good cast. Sonic the Hedgehog 2 races past $400 million at global box office. Good for it. 8 things fans want to see in a Super Mario movie. I want to see Anya Taylor-Joy as Princess Peach. Is that actually happening? This is live action? No. No. Cause like, she already looks like Princess Peach. Oh, she's so beautiful. I love Anya Taylor-Joy. I am in love with Anya Taylor-Joy. She is just like a dream. But you cannot allow yourself to become obsessed with dreams and forget to wake up. Let's just get all the other ones and pile them all into one big pile and see what we got here. A major Forza Horizon 5 patch is out now. That's good to know. You can now become a werewolf in Sims 4. Whoop-de-doo. More Obi-Wan reviews and Marvel reviews. President Biden to propose a 3-month suspension of federal gas tax. That could be useful and good. Not for me or anyone in my country, but for hopefully convincing people that he's not completely useless. Don't care. Will baseball ever replace umpires with robots? Okay. Kate Bush was nearly featured on the soundtrack to Thor: Love and Thunder. And then they were like, nah, nobody knows who Kate Bush is. She'll never be relevant again. Get 8 Steam Deck games for $10 for a limited time. Deadliest earthquake in decades kills over 1,000 Afghanistan. Again, that changed so much. From like 100 and some odd people are dead. Now it's like, it's the deadliest earthquake in decades. And it's been lowered to a 5.9. It was 6.1 last time I checked. The quake was felt by 119 million people from Afghanistan, Pakistan, and India. The USGS said the death toll would likely only rise as the area takes in the full scope of devastation caused by rock slides, landslides, and damaged buildings. The quake was felt as far as Kabul and in the northern end of Pakistan as well, and that a secondary 4.5 magnitude quake went off 30 miles southwest of Khost an hour later, according to the USGS. The mountainous country is often impacted with quakes that can go as high as magnitude 7.1. The June 22nd quake was the deadliest tremor in the country in decades. 1998 6.1 magnitude quake killed at least 4,500 people, according to the AP. Another deadly 6.4 magnitude quake in western Pakistan killed 166 from both destroyed buildings and landslides back in 2008. The state-run news agency backed her. Reported that helicopters and ambulances from the capital were taking wounded from affected areas to hospitals. The agency included a video they posted to Twitter showing one military helicopter landing in a rural area to pick up wounded. Yep, that's a helicopter landing in a rural area with people around. They're like, oh shit, we did not realize how insane helicopters are. This is a lot. This is a lot of a lot. Anyway. I should not be laughing, people are dead. DICE has no plans to make non-Battlefield games. There is no time for anything else. Isn't that just true of life? Apex Legends input lag is a big issue on Xbox following new update. Well, that's good to know. Final Fantasy 16 won't be an open world game, but its icon battles will all be unique. Oh, that's... Phew. I was worried. Battlefield 2142 did horribly, so we're going to focus just on that for a while. The Xbox documentary just won an Emmy. That's good to know. Everybody was disappointed. So disappointed. A.D. Bryant would have left SNL sooner were it not for the pandemic. Okay. You can finally waste work hours watching YouTube directly on your phone, on your watch. That's nice. Can't imagine that'd be great for your battery, but with a new app called WatchTube. And it's an easy way to kill your battery in a matter of hours. Some users have success accessing YouTube content when linked through Messages app, but they have not, so it could just be lies. Lies! Huh. Okay. Huh, you can't link the app to your personal YouTube account. It's kind of shitty. Okay. Not that that's something I was clamoring to do anyway. But good to know. That sounds like a half measure. If it weren't for COVID, I probably would have left a few years earlier, A.D. Bryant said, but it was such a huge change. When COVID hit, it was so jarring that we were all like, I'm definitely going to come back next year. And I had to shoot Shrill for half of last season, and so I miss a lot. And it was like, well, now I should go back one more. I kept trying to seek one last normal year. This year wasn't the normal year that I hoped for, but it was closer to that. I was like, okay, it's really time now, and 10 felt like a nice, solid, round number. She's been in it for only 10 years. I thought it was more than 10 years, to be honest. Hmm. I wanted her and Keenan to be the only cast members to stick it out until the heat death of the universe. Hopes and prayers now transfer seamlessly to Cecily Strong. I thought she was leaving this year too. Oh yeah, that's soon. When is that? In July is when, is that next week? I think that is next week. We're getting the rest of Stranger Things next week? Nah. Either next week or the week after. Pretty cool. Adding characters to the timeline? I don't understand. To expand on its 280 character limit. How? On Wednesday, Twitter announced the launch of a long-form blogging feature that will allow users to expand on its 280 character limit. Twitter is famous for its requirement to curtail a thought into a mere 280 characters. While Twitter threads are a popular way to circumnavigate the cap, TechCrunch first reported that a new blogging feature from the social media website would allow users to publish long-form blog posts on Twitter. Soon after that report, Twitter confirmed that it's testing Twitter Write, a blogging product where users post notes, or blogs. The feature was teased earlier this month by tech blogger Nima Augie. Algae, that's an algae. Twitter article looks pretty polished at this stage. Okay. The feature was teased earlier this month by tech blogger Nima Augie, who posted a screenshot of artwork from Twitter Write. Screenshot posted last month by app blah 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 blah. Blah 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 blah. I don't understand. I don't understand what I'm looking at right now. According to Wong's screenshot, users may be able to use different headings, post photos, and embed tweets into their blog posts. Wong told me via DM that she stumbled upon the feature way back in February of this year while exploring the website's code, and explained to me that Twitter articles was a code name and the feature would likely be called Notes. The layout looked pretty polished with a simple yes it does. Okay. That's it. Oh. Okay. Oh, there went the cow. There's something happening here, but what it is ain't exactly clear. There's a dog in a suit over there, telling me I have to beware. Think it's time we stopped. Hey, what's that sound? Everybody look what's coming down. Bobby Kotick is staying on Activision's Blizzard's board. You. Good summation of that. Biden's FDA reportedly set to ban Juul in the US, so it's already basically impossible to find in Canada unless you order it direct from the site, and even then you can only get 1.8% nicotine. Okay. Bats have good memory, is a summation of that. 14 movies you won't believe made $1 billion. I believe it. Star Trek Stormfall launches on console, brings on June... What? Oh, is that a online thing? Yeah, it's an online thing. One of these days I'm gonna dive into that online thing. Be like, wow. Spriggan Season 1 review. Is it good? Let's just scroll to the last paragraph. The Spriggan film released back in 1998 still looks amazing in comparison. It only focuses on one incident, doesn't include all the characters in its finite story-wise. This anime is a better representation of the manga, but visually the Spriggan show is rough around the edges. The only thing it has over the film besides the strict adherence to the manga is the voice acting. Dubbed or sub, the cast as a whole did an amazing job. So visually it just looks kind of meh. Okay, cool. Good to know. Dice to forego Mirror's Edge style projects focus entirely on Battlefield, which is too bad, because Mirror's Edge is one of my favorite games of all time, so... The first one, not the second one. Fall Guys goes free to play, servers immediately crash. I thought there was a whole thing where Xbox was like, yeah, we're gonna make sure Bobby Kotick leaves. And now it's like, nope, he's sticking around, don't worry about it. Oh, that sucks. The Insight lander likely won't make it to the end of the year because there's too much dust. Trash to gas isn't a fairy tale climate solution. It seems like magic. In millions of operations scattered around the globe, some big, some very small, waste is transformed into energy. Landfilled garbage, that's from Sims 4. So it's real. Though it's been hailed as an environmental miracle solution, making and burning biogas still emits greenhouse gases contributing to climate change. And biogas biogas facilities may be emitting more than their fair share. Researchers in a new study have quantified harmful methane. That's why we have to lower emissions elsewhere, because this emission is useful because it gets rid of garbage as well. I think it's a good thing. Hmm. Hmm. Sorry, I kind of just read that one to myself, but if you were curious about the workings of the California waste garbage system, then hopefully we were able to read that on the screen. Because that was obscure but not entirely uninteresting. Da da da, this affordable simulator lets you play golf at home. Good for it. Let's see this. What this is about. Blizzard outlines changes for Wrath of the Lich King Classic. I'm considering, because I was bullied out of Burning Crusades Classic, and I've heard about their fresh launch servers. So I'm thinking maybe if they do fresh launch servers, and I can pick a PvE, not a PvP server, because I've learned my lesson on that one. That's where all the edgelords like to hang out, or the PvP servers. So let's do a PvE roleplay server. No conservative will want to hang out there. And I might give it another chance. So I'm looking forward to these fresh start servers, and I'm interested to see when they happen and what else will be happening. Nurture and protect social experiences. That's good. The social nature of WoW Classic has become one of its defining features, and Blizzard is looking to preserve that both in Wrath of the Lich King Classic and future WoW Classic releases. As such, features like the automated group finder, which was added late during the original Wrath of the Lich King's life, won't be found in Wrath of the Lich King Classic. Okay. Aside from social aspect, another key pillar of WoW Classic for Blizzard is keeping the game approachable and familiar. Too many changes can easily destroy the familiarity and approachability many long-time players have for Classic expansions. On the other hand, the goal of keeping things approachable means Blizzard isn't afraid to tinker with systems that by today's standard have come across as confusing. Blizzard uses Wrath of the Lich King's emblem system as an example, calling the original system needlessly complex and confusing. The new system used in the Wrath of the Lich King Classic will see players earn two types of emblems. One type from the most current raid content used to purchase the latest gear, another type for the older raids and dungeons used to purchase less powerful items. Okay. The last pillar Blizzard defines is the idea that the world of Azeroth is the main character of WoW Classic, with the goal of immersing players in the World of Warcraft. That means Blizzard won't be making excessive changes to the world itself. One example of that philosophy in action is the previously announced decision to not include more in-depth quest tracking features that show players where to go on their map, a feature added late in the original Wrath of the Lich King. So they will not include, well that's fine, I have mods for that. As for other changes coming in Wrath of the Lich King Classic, Blizzard writes it will be ramping up the difficulty of the expansion's Naxxramas raid, and it will also be looking to keep heroic dungeons both relevant and challenging. In a separate forum post, Blizzard also announced a 50% XP boost event called Joyous Journeys will be coming to Burning Crusade Classic servers prior to Wrath of the Lich King's launch, which should help players looking to level up new characters out of the expansion's release. Blizzard does not have an exact length of time or start date for the XP boost just yet, but expects the event to last roughly 6 to 8 weeks up until the release of Wrath of the Lich King Classic. The XP boost will initially be present on the new Wrath of the Lich King Classic Fresh Start servers during the game's pre-patch, so we still don't know when that's happening. That's what I really want to know, because that's what I'm curious for. I want to try that Fresh Start server and find one that's safe from all these scary conservative types. Alright, moving on. That's not actual blood. I believe it's talking about blooms, fungus blooms, something like that. Algae blooms. See, I was right. Ish. Let's keep moving on. Oh yeah, I heard about this. The first 1.5 terabyte micro SD cards are coming out, which is pretty exciting. Imagine getting one of those for your Steam Deck. Oh man. That'd be pretty boss. Spoken like someone who's in the Star Wars prequels, it's true. I mean, I had it with a professional too. It was slaughtered critically, and now, despite having been in Marvel and Star Wars movies, it's the main thing people come up to me about. That and Star Wars are two examples of things that when they came out, I was like, oh my god, this is a disaster. And then 20 years later, actually 30 years later for the professional, it's beloved. Fair enough. Fair enough. So she's used to that. I mean, it's always amazing to see yourself, even if only for a split second in a Marvel film, because you're in places that you've never actually been before, she says in Variety. It's like seeing photos from a vacation that you never took or something. Okay. So does she watch it as a fan then? That's kind of what that sounds like. I wonder if she watches the prequel movies as a fan. PlayStation's big summer sale is on, and it's actually not bad. Oh no, Keanu Reeves is into NFTs now. God. Don't do it, Keanu Reeves. You're supposed to be smarter than that. Meh, 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 meh. All of that is meh. Anthem is $6. LOL. uh. Design a nuclear power plant for the moon. That's already happened in the show For All Mankind. They already have multiple nuclear power plants on the moon. But that's a TV show. Is shutting down legendary server Honor. I keep meaning to join their legendary server, the slow one. But then like it's really difficult because I don't have time for anything nowadays. I would love to get into Lord of the Rings online just to see what that was all about. At least once. I like to exit before people tell me to exit. In case you haven't noticed, Chris Hemsworth, people don't usually do that. Like, they usually just let shit happen. Good lord, check out the ears on this kid. What? That is adorable, but what? Are those real ears? Xbox Cloud Gaming will receive keyboard and mouse support. Huh. So, like, I could stream Halo Infinite, like, on an Xbox Series X on my PC playing with a mouse and keyboard? Because that would blow my fucking mind. What? That does sound like what they're saying. Kind of like how they added touch controls to certain games. It sounds like they're adding mouse and keyboard controls. That sounds insane to me. This is getting so just awesome. Like, it's ubiquity and ease of use, and just things just work. And why not? Why not make things just work like that? It's probably really hard behind the scenes, but in front of the scenes, everything looks great. How will loot boxes and currency transfer? Oh, loot boxes are being done away completely for the sequel. Huh, those will be opened automatically and their contents will be transferred to your account in the sequel. Interesting. It will ditch the first game's loot box in favor of a battle pass system. So instead of it being random, you'll know exactly what you're unlocking and when. Interesting. This is the largest freshwater fish ever caught. That? It's hard to tell. Okay. Final Fantasy X is coming to War of the Visions. Whatever the fuck that is. Probably some mobile nonsense. Alright, we did it. That's all the news. That's all the news. Alright. So this has been the nightly news. I intend to do this every Monday to Thursday from 11 till whenever. And then from there, I'm going to go watch my late shows before going to bed. So peace out, live long and prosper, and may the force be with you, always.